Alright, food coma recording. Here we go. Where did we leave off last time? So we left off working on our leaks too. And we kind of got our basic ideas set up. We got kind of a way we're going to mask it. So how we're going to get our selection. Remember, that's the first step. My first step of the process is, alright, roughly how am I going to get the selection I'm going to need and have it automated relatively simply for the artist, for my fellow artists. And then we kind of got an idea of being able to move in one direction with the effect we were looking for. Again, we're looking for leaks, so we needed to run downwards, and the slope blur grayscale is what gave us the streaking downwards and not streaking back and forth, things like that. Please note, in the last video, and all of these videos, and for that case, is that for the most part I'm trying to show you the thought process to come to your own conclusions and kind of the things to think about. I'm not trying to just give you a free graph, I'm not trying to wow you with making a graph, I'm not trying to sit here and author some amazing thing that you're like, oh, I'm just going to copy that and use it for myself. I'm trying to show you how to come to these conclusions so you can do them for yourself, so you can start creating the ideas, or at least having the knowledge to at least ask the questions like, hey, how do I get this? And I'm totally up for helping and things like that. I'm not trying to say I don't want to give away things for free or like give the community back some things. It's just, again, these are Red 5 Studios property, and so I can't just start giving away nodes unless they're my personal nodes. And unfortunately, all the nodes, the hundreds of nodes I've made in the last year, I've all pretty much done for work. I haven't really gone home and made my own library, and maybe that's my mistake. I should have made my own tools and let Red 5 use them. So that would have been smarter. But, there's always the future. So yeah, please keep that in mind. This is all thought process. This is, alright, how do I want to do this? How do I want to get to this step? And then once you start doing that, hopefully by now, even after watching the last video, you're starting to ask your own questions and hopefully trying to figure out what the answers are. And again, I'm more than happy to help figuring out those answers. I'm more than happy, to answer questions. And there's plenty of people online, algorithmic forum, on Polycount, all over the place that'll help you get to whatever you need to get to. So, in this video, we need to start working on the next step, which is making it a little bit pretty, refining what we want, refining the selections we want, and basically, again, continue to play. Again, throw nodes in, delete nodes. Last video, I was trying to show you I'm doing air quotes here, making mistakes to show you guys the thought process, trial and error. Like when I started doing the blur thing before, I was like, oh, but there's a node that already does this. I was just trying to show you that a process that could have developed a tool, that could have developed another node and things like that. I've made plenty of these nodes, so a lot of it I can work through, but there's a lot of it I still don't know. There's a lot of it I sit here and stare at my screen going, I don't know what I'm doing. And yeah, that's why asking the questions, once other people start thinking, it's going to start bringing other stuff to the surface and help other people, so just as much as I want people to get ideas from this videos, I want to get ideas from you guys. Alright, so I keep going off on tangents. It's lunch, I'm telling you. So let's start making things pretty. So the first thing we're going to notice here is, it's all even, looks pretty lame. If we go back to that plate, the test plate that I had, these are way cooler looking. They kind of have a point to them. They drop down a little bit further, so let's try to see about beautifying, making it a little bit more accurate. So what options do we have here? So we know that the slope works off of, this levels, grays and blacks, with white being streaked the most, black disappearing because we're doing a subtract here. But if we zoom in here, we also notice there is a little bit of gray information in there. That's probably because this isn't actually 100% black and white, unfortunately. This is probably a slight gray, which is causing that problem. So we might need to go back and look at that as well. So let us go ahead first try to get this a little bit better. So we see here there are blending modes. So let's see if changing those. Well, that's a little cooler. It's duplicating this line. What about max? Alright, so max. Well, max gives us really a lot better streaks. You know, they do break when you go too far, so we might want to limit this to not go up to 16. But, you know, those are definitely way cooler. Alright. So, how would we adjust the amount? Because if you notice, they're all pretty even. So, maybe through our levels? You know, no, it's not doing it. That's kind of doing it. Let's see, so maybe the mid-range. Well, the mid-range definitely helps. You know, split it up a little bit more. Alright, so that's a good thing to note. So, while we're making notes, we can break our graph. While we're making mental notes, you can actually come in here and comment. And this is very helpful, especially in the in process for people to come in and change your stuff or look at what you did. If you go here, you can say add comment. Okay, here goes our comment. We could say controls. You know, we could just make a note here while we're thinking. So use to change leak amount or density. Okay. So make a note there. We say, all right, that's doing that. This is good on max. All right. So we got it looking a little bit better. So what else can we do to improve? Well, it's dripping in between these up and down cracks, right? And that's probably not exactly accurate. Well, not that it's not accurate. It's just going to get a little bit noisy with this being automated. Again, we're working with something automated. It's not going to be 100% perfect. And sorry about the beep. So we need to start thinking about ways to get it so maybe use on-off switches so it works with this type with the bricks with an up and down, you know, line in the middle. It'll also work with something that doesn't have that, you know, so maybe switches, things like that. So we also need to start working through those problems as well. So we already touched on one. Okay, so changing those. So let's go ahead up here and look at our mask again. And remember, this mask is kind of controlling everything. Not everything, but this mask will be what gives us where just the cracks are. You know, this is our selection. So if we're trying to mask out these up and down lines and do it in an automated way, again, automate. You want to think of you know, you don't want your artist to always have to make custom masks and have a PSD of custom masks to make a texture. You want to try to make it as painless as possible. So how do we make this as painless as possible? Well, we know we have a normal map input, right? Well, normal maps, if you don't know, are split up into channels. Each channel is a direction. Okay, so if you go up here to split, there's RGB split. Okay, what this does is split up whatever textures channels you have. Alright, so if we go ahead and do this. Alright, so we have RGBA channel now. I'm not sure if there's just an RBG. No, there's not. So let's go ahead and we're just going to grab some levels here. Simple node just to connect, just to see what's in each channel. So if anyone wasn't aware of how a normal map functioned, we can maybe help you learn something more today. Alright, so normal map is comprised of your red, your green, and your blue channel. Okay? And whenever you hear about, you know, people use Max versus Maya have a flipped green, that's because the green channel is actually flipped. So you invert it for Max, usually. Max is the oddball. So in the R channel, you have directions left and right. In the G channel, or green channel, you have up and down. And then in the blue channel, you have basically depth. So it's just what goes back. And these are all just black and white, and they merge together and create the weird colors you see. You can, a lot of the times when people hand paint normals, they're hand painting normals within these channels, because then you're just using grayscale values, and then it automatically creates your normal map. So there goes my little side tangent. But you can already see here that, well, we want to mask out this part. So this is actually giving us something that we might be able to use to mask. So let's go ahead and delete the other two. So we're going to use this RGB split, grab the channels we want. So we have these lines here. So we almost need to take 50% gray, figure out how to make it disappear. And then we need to try to take this gray here and make it black so that we can create a proper mask. So how would we want to do that? Well, let's start with a gradient map. Okay. Switch it to grayscale. Alright, so with a gradient map, we should be able to start manipulating those values. So if we want 50% gray maybe to be black, but if you notice we start losing our other line, so maybe we don't want that. So let's leave that white. Maybe change this to black. Okay, alright, so now both of those lines are pretty much black. Yeah, alright. So maybe we start there. Alright, so let's start with that. So we would need to try to maybe blur that line together slightly. How would we want to do that? Well, if you guys remember, I showed you that cool trick with blur, and then you add a blend. Alright, so we do that, okay. And we'll do what? Max light. Maybe max min dark. Min dark's gonna work way better. Alright. Okay. No, we don't need this anymore. Alright, and then let's get that histogram scan for the in there. Oops, not mist, hist. Sorry, again, I have to type around the mic. Alright, histogram scan, plug. Don't really want a lot of contrast. And we don't need it to be that big, we just want those to kind of come together. Maybe something like that. Alright, well you notice these are kind of huge compared to our cracks because it's also calculating in the bend, you know, that it's bending up. So maybe we actually went the wrong direction and we should have just grabbed this center line right here and masked out the rest. Well, we could try that real quick as well. Alright, so let's grab a gradient map. Put that in. No. Well, if we're just trying to grab the center line, why don't we just invert what we already made up here, right? So we could take this, invert. Okay. But now what's the problem? Now we have all of this stuff being masked out. Might not be what we want, might be okay. Well, technically it's okay because in the end, those squares are masked out as well. So in this case, it's probably okay. So let's go ahead and do that. Do that. Alright. So that might not work either. So let's try something else here. Let's go to levels. Alright, so don't forget levels will do an invert for you basically. As you see, this isn't going to quite work either because now we have these two white lines, right? And then everything else is black because those white lines were white on a white background. Okay, even if you look here because it was the background. So we need to continue working with our first plan. But again, try things because you might see a connection that doesn't work here but works somewhere else. So we basically need to shrink what we have here or need to mask it out. Okay. So if we go back to getting that levels, do something like this. Invert it, like we talked about. Okay. And we go to another blend. Let's try to see what we can do here. horrible. Might be workable with. Subtract. Nope. Multiply. Definitely not. Alright, so add shows us something kind of interesting where we can almost have this if we could take the light information out. So we could sharpen that up a bit. You know, we could start getting something like that. But again, probably a little too complicated. Alright, so, well, why don't we just blend these together and see where we're at. So, let's blend our two masks. Okay. And we just need to what? Max lighten. Interesting. So right now, you see we're missing. Remember, we have this. Max lightens, making it so it takes out most of this. There's a little bit of a weird color there, so could be because of levels. Alright, so actually that's giving us pretty good. So then we can almost blend again. Okay. Actually, levels. Okay. Invert. Okay. Why am I inverting? You'll see in a second. And we can blend. And what? Alright. Now, we were pretty much there right now, but you're going to notice that we have these weird colors. It's because our gradient map, like I said earlier, is slightly off. So maybe we need to reconsider how we're doing that, and maybe just switch back to using levels. Or something else. Alright, let's go ahead and move this stuff up. This insanity. Up to here. Alright. And then we're going to go ahead and do a blend and also give me a levels. Why am I doing this? You're going to see. Alright, we're going to blend us a... Actually, give me a levels as well. Another levels. We're going to use this as our ambient occlusion. Okay. We're going to blend our ambient occlusion with a cavity. Okay, curvature is going to get inverted. Something like that. There we go. Something like that. And we'll go ahead and do that. And our ambient occlusion obviously needs inverted as well. Okay, then we'll go ahead and copy, add. Oh, there we go. Add sub. So there we go. This actually ends up giving us a much better pattern. What we had going here. Okay. Well, what about our gradient map now? We took all that time to make this gradient map. Now it's inverted and it's the wrong way. Well, now we just need to adjust how the stuff is blending up here real quick. Or we could invert and re-invert, but that's we don't need to do that. All right, so let me pause and do that real quick because we're at 20 minutes almost. All right, so all I did was exactly what I said. I went ahead and changed our selection. Actually, we can bypass that levels now. Delete that. You know, changed our blend to now blend between these instead of just the 100% white, and then plugged it in and skipped our old invert grayscale, which we can delete as well. We could probably, like I was mentioning, this is not 100% white. I forgot to change that as well. Oh, what am I saying? We're bypassing that as well. One sec. There we go. Forgot to bypass that gradient like we were doing. So now we just have lines going in one direction. Now, this is a little complex, right? We could have, okay, just as we saw, we could get just this to mask out the up and down lines. We could simply say, bam, and make a mask just out of this. And now you just have left and right. Okay, now why would this, based on what you're doing, one has an advantage, or not one has an advantage, they both have their advantages. So this way we can do a switch, okay? We can say, okay, we can have you change, you know, if we don't want this access, we can take it out. If we do have this access, we can, or do want to use this axis, we can turn it off, you know, so we can do a bypass, which we're not going to go over right at this second. Again, this is about thought processes, and also me trying not to make these 2 hour long each, and you get bored trying to make a graph. So that's why I did pause. I try to avoid it, but in that case, it was going to be a little bit faster to do that. And it was already kind of going long on how to take out a selection. But again, it's a way of thinking, and as you saw, once I got to the end of this, you could take a look at all that work you just did and then be like, oh, wait a minute, I did all that work to exclude this when all I needed to do was do this basically function to make the initial mask. Okay. Sorry, another bleep. I'm getting messages. So hopefully you kind of saw two different ways there, and maybe you saw that problem from when I started doing that. But again, I want you to think, I want you to look at it, I want this to be a little bit of trial and error, so that you're thinking. And I'm sure you're tired of hearing me say that at this point. So the other advantage of doing what we just did, okay, as you saw, we have nothing here now. So if we look at our leaks, we just have leaks coming straight down. So the advantage of kind of doing what this was is we can actually change our position here and maybe switch that up a little bit. So if we come back up here to our position, we can maybe shrink it just a little, you know, to start getting a different effect. You know, maybe we want the middle to dip down a little bit more, things like that. In fact, when I had it inverted the other way, I actually had a really cool effect going when I had paused it. So now I kind of feel bad. So maybe in the next video I'll go over the other way that I had it, to also show you a different process or a different conclusion that this could have come to. But I'm going to go ahead and publish this one, and then we're going to go over more cleanup and more refinement for this graph in the next video. And then the video after that, probably be two more. In the video after that, we'll go over functions and how to create the buttons for this, and get it wrapped up to be used. So hopefully you enjoyed, and hopefully it wasn't too confusing. I did kind of get a little scatterbrained in there. If you have any questions, please feel free to leave them in the comments or message me on polycount or algorithmic, but my thread got taken down. I think it's because I put it in the wrong place, but I didn't get a message about why. So I don't know if I'm in trouble. So, but you can still find me on algorithmic forums as well. Alright, take care. Hope you enjoyed.